Welcome, everyone, to another Diabetes Canada healthcare provider webinar in our nutrition series. Very excited that we have a very special guest to speak today about diabetes and diets, the ones that are popular and are recommended or people have questions about. So excited to have our guest speaker chat through those. But first, I'll pass over to our host, Rebecca.
Thank you, Grace, and welcome everybody to the webinar today. My name is Rebecca Savdi, and have the great pleasure of being the host of this three-part nutrition series by Diabetes Canada. I am a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, and the co-founder of Idea Diabetes. I'd like to acknowledge the lands that I'm joining from today, the lands of the Coetson, Halalt, and Penelakut in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island, where I live as an uninvited guest on the lands that have been stewarded and cared for thousands of years. Be sure to check out the other two topics in this series, focused around supporting healthy food relationships with food for people with diabetes, as well as food security and household food insecurity. I am pleased to introduce our lovely speaker today, Sofia Kalamaris, who will be speaking about therapeutic diet trends in diabetes. I'll now pass over to Sofia to introduce herself.
All right, thank you for having me. As we said, my name is Sofia Kalamaris. I'm a registered dietitian and diabetes educator. I've been a dietitian for over 20 years and have over 16 years in the diabetes education world. I've also focused on other metabolic syndromes, weight loss, some eating disorders and disordered eating, as well as general health. And I've had a passion for diabetes throughout my whole career. So today we're going to be talking about diabetes and some diets, therapeutic diets, diets that I often get questions about. And I've just picked a few of the most popular ones that I often get questioned about and I help my patients along with. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Mediterranean diet. And this diet has been around for many years and has been studied extensively. This diet is high in fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, whole grains, healthy fats such as olive oil. It's moderate in dairy, fish, and poultry, but fairly low in red meat. So any kind of red meat, whether it's beef or pork. What makes this diet healthy or heart healthy is that it's high in the monounsaturated fats, which is very good for your heart, as we all know. It's high in fiber and antioxidants, and this also helps to reduce the risk for heart disease and stroke. So all of these foods together help make it a heart healthy diet. It's high and rich in fiber due to the legumes and the whole grains, the fruits and vegetables, which help prevent and improve glycemic control, prevent diabetes and improve glycemic control. And it's also taking a more balanced approach, incorporating nutrient-dense foods, healthy fats, and then it helps to aid in weight management. So the premise of this diet is that using whole foods, healthy foods versus fast foods and convenience foods. Another diet that is similar to this is the DASH diet, where it's also incorporating a lot of these principles. So the two together, I consider a very well-balanced diet. The other diet that I often get questioned about is a vegetarian diet. And I'm finding this more and more recently that more people are wanting to go more plant-based. But a vegetarian diet could mean many different things to people. So often when they do come to me, I do ask them, what do you mean by vegetarian diet? Because it could be vegetarian where they're just cutting out any kind of meat such as poultry and red meat, but they are open to having dairy and eggs, or they can be going even stricter to a vegan diet, which is strictly plant-based. Either one, they do tend to be higher in fiber, lower in the saturated fats and cholesterol, higher in antioxidants, polyphenols, and that's also compared to the typical omnivore diet where it does have all of these animal products. Because it is so high in fiber and antioxidants from the fruits and the vegetables, it does help to lower blood pressure and cholesterol and reduces the risk of heart disease and stroke. It helps in weight management, which in turn can help with these metabolic syndromes such as diabetes, stroke, and heart disease. But it does tend to be lower in calories due to being more plant-based. It helps to control blood sugars because these plant-based foods are generally lower on the glycemic index. So it does help prevent these spikes in blood sugars and help our blood sugars stabilize a little bit because they are slower to digest due to the fiber content. It improves our digestive health because of this fiber content. And it does show, some research does show it helps reduce some forms of cancer due to its high intake of fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and the absence of processed meats. So the whole grains, as well as the fruits and vegetables, where it's the antioxidants, may help reduce some forms of cancer. Another one that has been pretty big recently, question-wise, and pretty big in the weight loss area is the low carb and keto. So there's two different meanings to what low carb and keto are. They're two very different diets. A low carb diet could be anything between 20 to 150 grams of carbs per day, whereas a keto is actually considered a very low carb diet. And that's only between 20 to 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. But it's high in fat and a moderate amount of protein. So the two, either one or the other, can help you lose weight by limiting the carbs. And by doing that, the thought is that you're going to dip into the stored fat to use as fuel. Keto is the same thing, but it's making your body go into ketosis or promoting ketosis to produce ketones to accelerate your body's fat burning stores. And the question I always have is this safe or is this not? And often I caution people when they're doing this, because there can be some medications that you are taking for diabetes or for your blood sugar control that can already promote or put you at higher risk for hypoglycemia, such as sulfonylureas and insulins. And then having a low carb or very low carb diet without any kind of adjustment to medication can increase this hypoglycemia even further. So being very careful. They are possible, but you just have to be careful. To give you an idea, a typical North American diet will be anywhere between 120 to 200 grams of carbohydrate per day. So going into a lower carb diet between 20 or 150 already is fairly low compared to what people are already typically eating. Intermittent fasting is another hot topic recently as well. And intermittent fasting, and this is for the purpose of dieting, not for religious reasons, means you're fasting or you're going without food for a prolonged period of time. And this means something different to everybody. So this could mean to somebody, I'm not going to eat anything after dinner, but still eat my 3 meals a day, starting with breakfast. To others, it might mean skipping breakfast and going to lunch and then having a smaller eating window or nutrition window, or others even smaller, and they're only allowing themselves just a very small window of eating. And then there could be pros and cons to this. So the pros that have been seen by some is that it improves insulin sensitivity. It reduces the insulin levels to improve your blood sugar control. It does help with weight loss because it does create a calorie deficit. It could also improve cardiovascular health by improving your LDL, triglycerides, blood pressure, and some inflammatory markers. And this is done due to that fasting period that improves these lipid measurements, but it also helps with the clearance of your LDL and your triglyceride stores. In some other studies, it does show that it helps with some brain health, such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, but there are some drawbacks to it. So intermittent fasting isn't for everyone. Like I said, there can be some medications that someone is on for blood sugar control, such as sulfonylureas and insulin, that can pose a risk to blood sugars and can cause hypoglycemia. But also maybe some people aren't able to fast. Maybe you just can't make it for that meal. You're just extremely hungry. You might feel dizzy. The feeling of having a low blood sugar, but not. And sometimes if we really restrict our eating window, that small amount of time that we're eating, we can still ingest all the calories for the day, so we're not really cutting back on calories. Or are we really delaying our food? I mean, it's causing us to eat a lot more later on in the day. So there are pros and cons to this, and you really have to look at, is this the right diet for somebody? Can I actually do it? So that's part of what I said a little, is it safe for everybody? So when somebody says to me, I want to try intermittent fast and see if it works for me, first thing I ask them is, can we check your blood sugars more regularly? Do you have any lows? If they're on any kind of CGM or intermittent glucose monitor, then you can easily see that through the trends to see if it is the right diet for them. How is their energy level throughout the day? Are you finding you're getting tired? Are you finding you're getting hungry? Are you eating more at night? Are you eating more at once? And when I do eat, what am I eating? Because it's not only cutting back the time frame in what we're eating, but it's also looking at what we're eating. We want to make sure that you're still remaining nourished and you're getting all your nutrition that you need to live out a well-balanced diet or healthy lifestyle. So looking at what the foods are as well, and then helping them through it. And are they eating more? So, and the other thing, the other con could be is that a large amount of food eating in a small period of time could be affecting your digestion. It is a lot harder to digest a large amount of food versus smaller amount of food over the day. So we look at that as well. Another more recent and hotter topic nowadays is the type 2 and remission diet. So this diet is in the clinical practice guidelines, the newer clinical practice guidelines. It is a little bit controversial, but it does work for some. And this remission diet is a very low calorie diet. And it's been studied for the remission of type 2 diabetes. Keep in mind, this remission that they found in people with type 2 diabetes is usually more successful in the first few years of diagnosis of diabetes or in pre-diabetes. It doesn't work as well if you've had diabetes. If it's long-standing for many years, like 20 years or 10 years, it usually works better in the short term. So what's involved in this diet is there's 3 phases to it. So the phase 1 of the diet is a very low calorie diet, usually between 800 and 900 calories per day. And all of these calories are consumed through meal replacements. And that's like a liquid meal replacement. And because it's such a low calorie diet, there is no exercise recommended in this first phase at all. In the second phase, it's still a very low calorie diet between 800 and 900 calories, but you're allowed to introduce a little bit of food. So you still are having 2 to 3 meals per meal replacements per day, but you're allowed 1 actual meal per day. And then again, exercise is very limited. And then you move on to the maintenance phase. And this maintenance phase is where you're going to be for the rest of your life. And that goes between maintenance and remission. So remission means if they start increasing weight, then they go back to this maintenance phase, or if they gain weight, too much weight, where they start seeing an increase in blood sugars, they may have to start back onto phase 1. So the calorie level of this is dependent on each individual's needs, and not everybody is going to need the same amount of calories, but it's created based on the individual, their, current weight, what their health status is, their activity level. And then in this phase, they are allowed to be eating food, and exercise is encouraged. And this phase, obviously, you do need to be, all 3 phases, you should be monitored closely by a registered dietitian and your whole healthcare team to make sure you're safe and you're healthy doing it. And throughout all 3 phases, you are met regularly and you're weighed in on a regular basis. So the question is the safety and sustainability of it. So as I'm talking about that, this is the actual diet that is taken from the clinical practice guidelines with all of the specifications on each phase. So the question is it safe? It may be safe as long as it's done under the care of the healthcare professional and monitored by a dietitian and a doctor. This is not something that is meant to be done on your own without the guidance of the medical guidance of anybody. But as you can see, 900 or 800 calories is very restrictive, and it is very hard to follow. So the sustainability of this diet is very low. So anybody could follow something in a short period of time, but can they do this for the rest of their life? life is the question. And that's something you want to have this conversation with somebody before they even start it. Obviously, there are other issues that we have to look at, such as, do we need to adjust your medication? Other health issues like bowel movements and things like that. You might need more supplementation, such as fiber, because you're not getting as much food and the fiber content is pretty low. So those are things we really want to look at and see, is this the right one for you? So some of the take-home points, if anybody ever comes to me and asks me about either any one of these diets or which one is the right one for them, I always say, make sure it's the right one for you. And you have spoken with your doctor, you have been with a dietitian or any kind of educator to make sure it's the right one for you. And if you are on any medication, we want to make sure we're adjusting these medications, both for timing of the medication and dosage, and for safety. So at any time that anybody's on any medication, especially the high hypoglycemic medications like sulfonylureas and insulins, is, how are my blood sugars? Am I at risk of having a low blood sugar? Am I getting enough nutrients? If any of these diets are very restrictive, am I getting enough of the nutrients, enough nutrition just to sustain my health? Something like the keto diet, which I didn't mention, is being careful of ketosis. So having type 1 diabetes, we're already at risk for ketones for various reasons, whether there's something wrong with our insulin, we're missing an insulin dose, illnesses. Having a ketogenic diet might make DKA come on a little bit faster. So that is something that you want to really be careful of. It is seen in type 2 diabetes sometimes, especially with the addition of the SGLT2 inhibitor. So if anybody is on that, whether they have type 1 or type 2, being really careful in preventing any kind of DKA, because that is very dangerous. And the other question I ask people often is, whatever diet you're choosing, is this something that you can follow for at least 5 years of your life? Because any kind of diet is not meant to be short-term as a quick fix. It's not going to be successful. We want to make sure whatever you're following, you can follow it for at least 5 years of your life, so that this is sustainable and you're not putting yourself at risk or doing any kind of yo-yo dieting and going up and down in your weight. So those are the main things I really talk to somebody. But whenever somebody wants to follow any one of those diets, we do help them along their journey and offer any kind of points to make sure that it is safe for them to do. And if ever it's not, we do tell them, this is not the best thing for you. Maybe you should look at these aspects or that aspect to make sure that it is healthy for them and it doesn't put them at any further risk that they're already in.
Thank you so much, Sophia. You really have provided a great overview on the current trends and questions that many people with diabetes have on the eating trends and diets for diabetes, as well as for overall health. While these topics are never straightforward, sometimes controversial, and every person's preferences and access to foods varies, you've really provided a great balanced perspective and advice on these diet trends. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm now going to pass back to Grace to share a few more things.
Thank you so much. You can watch all of our past webinars and the other webinars in this series now at guidelines.diabetes.ca/webinars, and there's also a link to our podcast there. Please fill out the survey. There's a link below the video on guidelines.diabetes.ca/webinars. This will help us improve our webinars in the future, and you can also suggest topics you'd like to see. Consider becoming a member of Diabetes Canada. As a professional member, you'll get access to the Canadian Journal of Diabetes, the Diabetes Communicator, a discount to conference, and access to our online community, along with so much more. Our professional members can continue the conversation about today's topic at community.diabetes.ca. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, consider making a donation, as all of our webinars for healthcare providers are free. You can donate at www.diabetes.ca/donate, and this helps us provide more webinars and content for healthcare providers in the future. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.